Now, it must be pointed out that fighting Lomachenko must be like fighting a mosquito that gives you concussions instead of bites. Let's talk science, particularly a concept that I've been hinting at and I've been wanting to talk about for a couple of weeks now, which is why this breakdown is probably going to be so long. It's a concept that I would call NEN, and I'll tell you why at the end of the video, so stick around there. It's not something that I've invented. Different people call it different things. Basically, what I'm describing is crossing the invisible barrier, the visible threshold, the line that kind of dictates your opponent's punching range, but particularly the part of the range where they feel obligated to respond. And Loma's so masterful at standing at the precipice of that actionable space or getting inside of it before his opponent can throw the punches they intend to throw. He's good at creeping into the range without you noticing, and he's good at exploding in and out of that part of the range. Most fighters are forced to react when they feel you cross that invisible barrier, that threshold. There's like a bubble, a space that they feel once you've transgressed it, they have to respond in some way, defensively or offensively. He's good at throwing off those reactions, playing off of those reactions, and overwhelming the sensibilities that allow people to react properly. Okay, now let's get into the breakdown. Let's talk science. There's this battle in the space between them, and Loma's not allowing Kambosos to properly measure and gauge distance. He purposely pulls slightly out of the way of Kambosos' probe so Kambosos can't get an accurate judge of the distance, and then he steps in with a jab that purposefully lands at the guard. You see how far away it is from Kambosos? It lands on the guard so that Loma can start controlling the space in between them. At the same time, Kambosos backs up, which is all part of Loma's plan as well. He jabs at the guard again. Kambosos tries to probe at Loma's guard. Loma gets out of the way. He's not allowing him to control the space or allowing him to get a good idea of the measurement between them in that space. Loma jabs at the guard again, and he's slowly pushing Kambosos back, which means Kambosos is losing territory, real estate in the ring. Jabs out there again. Kambosos is pulling back, so now he's getting Kambosos to back up more and more to the point where his back is about to be against the ropes. Loma steps in and he takes a bigger step into the space of Kambosos this time. Jabs, and then you're gonna see Kambosos take a bigger step back because Kambosos is trying to keep that space bigger between both of them. So Loma has been using that lead hand and some of the feints, but mostly that lead hand, to guide Kambosos into the positions in the ring where Loma wants him to be. He's dictating Kambosos' position, basically. He's taking away territory. And once he gets Kambosos in bad positions, the aggression with the feints is going to level up. Level change feint gets Kambosos to back up even further. He's getting closer to the ropes. And as he's starting to corner Kambosos, he's starting to get him closer to that corner. Another big feint right here. Level change, entry feint. Kambosos backs up even further. He's getting these reactions out of him. And then Loma does this slick move where he pulls down the guard and steps in on the entry. So all of those feints are disguising a real crossing into Kambosos' bubble. Once he jabs at the guard, then peels it down, then steps in, he lands his combo. He immediately starts to get out of that offensive options bubble. So Kambosos is trying to respond to Loma crossing into his space, and Loma knows that, so he gets what he needs to get and gets out before Kambosos can really get what he needs out of the situation as well. So at this point, Loma's just doing more of what he already was doing earlier, using the lead hand probes and other feints to put Kambosos in a bad position, a bad part of the ring where he can't move in too many ways. He has limited options. And then once he has him in that bad position, the aggression on the feints increases. And you see Kambosos back up. Now that you see Kambosos in a horrible position, Loma's gonna increase the aggression in which he gets into that responsive bubble, that reactive space. Again, I'm not talking about punching range. I'm talking about a particular part of punching range that once you get inside of it, like how Loma's gonna do here, he just barely leans into that part of Kambosos' range. You either respond defensively, offensively, or you try and back up, whatever. Now, Kambosos responds by backing up, and then he realizes, oh, I'm in a bad position, so he kind of feints to make space, and he starts trying to advance, and he tries to time Loma advancing, and Loma gets underneath it, and then he backs up. Now, Loma has that crab-like footwork where he can go back and then instantly come forward, and he starts circling around. And now Kambosos is in a horrible position. His right side cornered by the ropes, and his left side is taken by Lomachenko, kind of like a chess move. So Loma's able to line him up with the feints, reposition, get in, get out. Important part isn't just the offense once you get them to react, it's also the defense of getting out of the way of those reactions, using his feet to get in and out of that reactive space. People were talking about how fighting Loma must be overwhelming. Well, here's why. It's not just the physical pressure, it's the mental pressure, these slip feints, constant movement of that lead hand, constant just this rhythm that he builds, and he's about to break it in a second. But all these feints that keep you guessing, you don't know if he's just feinting to mess with you or actually you throwing a real attack. He's jabbing at the guard, controlling that space. Kambosos pulls out of the way. Now he has this constant rhythm that he's kind of getting you used to. Then he drops, and again, he's been doing level change feints consistently. So Kambosos kind of freezes right here because he doesn't know what's going to happen. And he breaks that rhythm, he level changes and then shoots up. Rather than level change and shooting up, he level change, pause, shoots up. So he breaks the rhythm, catches Kambosos off guard, freezes him actually. Look how Kambosos freezes when he drops. And he jumps in and catches him. So that's another way of crossing into that responsive space without getting countered. So the first clip we talked about, Loma was going in and out of that responsive space, throwing off Kambosos' reactions. The second one, he froze Kambosos with all the feints and broken rhythm. Here's another way he can get into that responsive space without actually getting damaged by the responses. What he does right here, I'm gonna say it's purposeful because he's gonna do it again in a few seconds. He purposefully gets down low and leans into Kambosos' punching range. Not necessarily the responsive space, but his punching range. Now Kambosos is given an easy target, so he tries to step in and measure with the jab. As he's coming forward, Loma is pulling back, but Loma uses the inertia of him coming forward to also come forward at the same time, so he's able to get into that space easier because Kambosos is kind of stuck on the front foot. And then he invades and gets inside, and he's able to get off of an attack without Kambosos being able to really respond. Now Loma is just invading his space and his territory all at once, so he's forcing him back, taking away position and taking away territory, and at the same time he's just constantly keeping a probe or a jab in his face, making it hard for Kambosos to respond, and he's waiting for a response. That's the point. He keeps playing with that threshold so he can get a response for Kambosos. Once he actually gets it right here, he pulls out of the way. So he purposely brings out the response, just like how he did last time. He brings out the response and then counters over top. So he can either go in and out of the range constantly and throw them off, or he can freeze them with feints and then get into range before they can react, or he can get into that space and put himself in positions where they're forced to respond and then counter that. Now it must be pointed out that fighting Lomachenko must be like fighting a mosquito that gives you concussions instead of bites. As you're constantly trying to swat at him, you're missing and he's catching you at will. At least that's how Kambosos probably felt. So a little bit of a step in, entry feint backs Kambosos up and also is conditioning him. Then he does a more aggressive step in entry feint, but immediately bounces back. Now look at the space between them. They're like 8 feet apart. They're way out of punching range. And then what Loma's gonna do is he's gonna immediately close that distance and catch him with a cross to the body. And then again, he's out of the way of a counter attempt from Kambosos. So Loma makes a big space between them and then instantly closes that space between them. And he throws off the sensibilities that allow Kambosos to counter in time. So science is built off bodies of evidence, not just single moments, right? So immediately after the cross, let's see if we're grasping at straws or if there really is a method to the madness. Immediately after the cross to the body, Loma's invading that space. He has a constant rhythm to his feet that he breaks at times, which we're finna see. Constant rhythm, and he steps in with that same rhythm. Normally the steps are kind of like back and forth, in and out, and they're small steps. The next step he takes in is a big step, and causes Kambosos to not react properly because he was used to him going in and out a certain distance at a certain rhythm, and then Loma steps in with that same rhythm, but he takes a bigger step and catches Kambosos off guard because he thought he was out of range. Immediately after, Loma jumps back. Again, big distance between them. Once you're at a bigger distance, generally your body can relax because you're not expecting any damage to come, so you can like take your breath. But Loma is keeping constant pressure and doesn't allow Kambosos to, sit outside of range. Look at the rhythm in full speed. So you see him go boom, 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 boom. And he's gonna keep that rhythm with his bounce until he breaks it. He stops, plants, freezes Kambosos like how he did earlier, steps in with the lead hand that peels down the guard, and he uses that to open up for the left, and then he's inside of the responsive space too much. He's too much inside of the responsive space to where Kambosos punches are getting caught on the arm instead of actually landing with the fist, and then he's immediately out big distance again. He's growing that space and shrinking that space at will, and it's making it hard to calculate when he's too far inside of the space or too far outside of the space. I don't want to make this too long, it probably is, but for a while I was thinking about doing a breakdown on this concept, and then the perfect fighter shows up for me to do a breakdown on this, so I was having a damn good time breaking this down, and I was trying to get so much information in, just illuminate my perspective, I guess. But I was having a damn good time, and I was just trying to get so much information in. By the way, I said at the end of the video I would explain why it's called ENN. It's because of Hunter x Hunter. There's it's an anime where a particular character is in a group, and he has an ability to have a bubble of energy around him, and when someone crosses into that bubble, he instantly responds. So that's why I call it that. Some of you may know about that, but regardless, Fight Scientists, we are going on to the undisputed heavyweight matchup. There will be a few parts to that this week. Then a fight simulation towards the end of the week. Look out for that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. We are out of here. Immortality Serum out.